If you drive out of Manchester heading east towards Sheffield, you will eventually find yourself on the A628. It's a beautiful, bleak stretch of road. Most drivers here are focusing on the fog or the tight bends. They have no reason to look down. But less than 100 yards from the tarmac, buried under millions of tons of Pennine rock, lies a 3-mile dead zone. Today, it looks like an abandoned piece of Victorian engineering, a pair of sealed stone eyes staring blankly into the valley. But in the 1840s, this wasn't an infrastructure project. It was a meat grinder. During the construction of the first Woodhead Tunnel, the British Empire lost more men here than in some of its most famous military campaigns. If you were a labourer digging this rock, your odds of making it out alive were lower than those of a soldier standing in the front line at the Battle of Waterloo. Those soldiers got monuments. These men got forgotten. To understand why this happened, we have to look at the map. In the 1830s, the Industrial Revolution was exploding, and the capitalists in Sheffield and Manchester needed a direct railway link. The solution was straightforward on paper. Dig a hole, straight through it. To do the dirty work, the railway company hired over 1,000 navvies, migrant labourers, many of them Irish, escaping poverty. They were brought out here, miles from civilization, and left to survive. They didn't live in houses. They lived in shanty towns, thrown together on the freezing, wind-swept moors. Huts made of damp turf and rotten timber, shared by 15 to 20 men at a time. No sanitation, no clean drinking water. The mud outside the huts was mixed with human waste and rotting food. It was a lawless, volatile environment where men drank heavily just to forget the cold. But as bad as the surface was, it was nothing compared to what happened when the morning whistle blew. There were no machines. Every single inch of the 3-mile tunnel was carved out by human muscle. One man would hold a heavy iron drill against the rock, and another would swing a sledgehammer to drive it in. Once the hole was deep enough, they stuffed it with black powder, lit a fuse, and ran. Because there was zero mechanical ventilation, the tunnel was permanently filled with a thick, toxic mix of sulfur smoke and stone dust. Men worked completely blind, breathing in poison for 12 hours a day. In that darkness, mistakes happened constantly. When a blast went wrong, the results were horrific. Men were blinded, limbs were torn off, bodies were crushed under sudden roof collapses. And the railway company? They didn't care. The navvies weren't employees, they were subcontracted numbers. The company didn't even bother to keep a register of the dead. In 1849, the squalor on the surface caught up with them. Cholera swept through the camps. Without medical care, the men died so fast that local churchyards refused to take them. They were buried in unmarked mass graves, their names wiped from history. When Parliament finally launched its inquiry, the numbers shocked even the most composed men in the chamber. 30 dead, 200 permanently maimed, 450 injured. And those were only the figures they could verify. No one had kept proper records, because no one had been required to. In 1845, the tunnel opened. Those who had survived walked away with nothing. No pension, no recognition, no name in any register.
But the line worked. For decades, coal and steel and freight moved through these hills, everything that kept industrial England turning. In its busiest years, 250 trains passed through in each direction, every single day. The bones of those men held up an economy. In the 1950s, the line was electrified. A third tunnel, wider, modern, was bored through the same rock, something close to a triumph. Almost. By the early 1980s, the equipment was life expired. Coal traffic across the Pennines had collapsed. Passenger services had already ended in 1970. Officials ran the numbers. Decided it wasn't worth it. In the early hours of Saturday, the 18th of July, 1981, the last train passed through Woodhead Tunnel, a freight working from Harwich to Trafford Park. 5 in the morning. After that, silence. The portal was sealed. The tracks were pulled up. The station was demolished. Today, the old Victorian tunnels carry high-voltage electricity cables, 3 miles of darkness that now conduct an invisible current through the same walls that still hold the dust of men who never lived to see the opening day. If you stand near the ventilation shafts on the moors above Woodhead, you won't hear trains. But some people say they hear something else. A faint, rhythmic thud of iron on stone, rising up through the grass and peat. It isn't a ghost story. It's the sound of a debt that was never paid.